Israel-Gaza Iran War News Live Update. Why tensions between Israel and Hezbollah could explode at any moment. After months of low-intensity conflict, Israel and the Lebanese Islamist group Hezbollah, supported by Iran, are stepping up cross-border operations. According to a warning from the Israeli military, they are prepared to launch a large-scale offensive on their northern border. After 8 months of hostilities, Israeli officials reportedly feel they can no longer afford to disregard or postpone action on the northern front. Even while neither side wants a full-scale conflict, experts say it's more probable than ever before. What is known at this time? Who, or what is fighting Hezbollah and Israel? For several decades, Israel and Lebanon have formally been at war with one another. After coming under attack from Palestinian terrorists in Lebanon, Israel unleashed a devastating invasion in 1982, bringing tanks all the way to Beirut, the capital. From then until Hezbollah expelled it in 2000, it ruled southern Lebanon for 22 years. According to Lebanon's official classification, Hezbollah is a resistance group that is supposed to oppose Israel, which is seen as an enemy state by Beirut. Hezbollah is considered a terrorist group by most Western nations. Sporadic gunfire has continued between the two groups ever since, but in 2006, following the abduction of 2 Israeli soldiers in southern Lebanon by Hezbollah, tensions finally reached a breaking point, and Israel invaded Lebanon. The fighting resulted in the deaths of almost 1,000 people in Lebanon. The majority of them were civilians, along with 49 Israeli citizens and 121 Israeli troops. Hezbollah gave Israel the bodies of terrorists it had been holding onto, along with the kidnapped troops, 2 years later in compensation for the release of Palestinian and Lebanese inmates in Israeli prisons. According to Israeli authorities, the latest confrontation between Hezbollah and Israel began with an attack on Israel on October 7 by Hamas, which resulted in the deaths of 1,200 people and the abduction of 250 more. As a result, Israel and Hamas went to war in Gaza, a conflict that has resulted in the destruction of much of the territory and the deaths of over 36,000 Palestinians. Hezbollah claims it is fighting alongside the Palestinians in Gaza in the current conflict with Israel. The Lebanese group's military might has increased since 2006, when it depended heavily on imprecise Katyusha rockets from the Soviet era. Hassan Nasrallah, head of Hezbollah, boasted today that his group has over 100,000 active and reserve members. If a full-scale war broke out, the group's 150,000 rockets might destroy Israel's defenses. Why has the temperature suddenly risen? The war between Israel and Hezbollah has been becoming hotter and hotter since October 8, according to Heiko Vimmen, who is in charge of Iraq, Syria, and Lebanon at the International Crisis Group in Brussels. As he put it, it's a slow-motion escalation that gradually advances. However, border conflicts have escalated in both frequency and severity, bringing both sides closer to war in recent times. According to Vimmen, there is certainly a rise in the number of casualties and the weapons used by Hezbollah. The Israeli side's casualty toll reached 19 on Wednesday, with the loss of 1 reservist in a Hezbollah attack on a northern Israeli settlement. When the war first broke out, the combat barely engulfed a 4-kilometer (2.5-mile) radius on either side of the border. Since then, both Hezbollah and Israel have been pushing farther into each other's land. Israel has struck regions of Lebanon over 120 kilometers north, while Hezbollah has shot 35 kilometers into Israeli territory. Israel blamed rocket fire from southern Lebanon, where Hezbollah claimed to have launched a swarm of drones at Israeli military facilities, for the huge fires raging through the northern portion of the country this week, which followed cross-border attacks from Lebanon. Hezbollah claimed on Wednesday that it had used a guided missile to attack the Iron Dome defense system in the northern Israeli settlement of Ramat Naftali. I am unable to confirm that at this time. Israeli Defense Forces spokeswoman Lieutenant Colonel Peter Lerner stated during a briefing on Thursday. "It is impossible for me to verify that this took place." The escalation by the group is a notable divergence from earlier flare-ups that have happened after October 8th, according to Hezbollah analyst and Cardiff University lecturer Amal Saad. Conveying new messages and methods is an integral part of this stage. It goes beyond just responding to Israeli attacks and rebuilding deterrence, Saad wrote on X. The conflict has gained significant attention and is hard to disregard, according to men of the International Crisis Group. Israeli officials are under pressure from far-right ministers in Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's government to react, so they feel obligated to do so, or at least appear to be responding. Israeli official and military officials are under pressure to intervene in the northern region, according to CNN interview with Ronnie Sheikht, a researcher at the Truman Institute at Hebrew University of Jerusalem. "No one can make it through this." What do the two camps have to say? Experts agree that neither side wants a full-blown conflict, despite the heated rhetoric from both sides. If Hezbollah decided to unleash an all-out war, Netanyahu warned in December that Beirut would become Gaza. Bezalel Smotrich, Israel's Minister of Finance, put a damper on hopes of a broader war this week by stating that the Israel Defense Forces aren't keen on expanding the conflict in order to wipe out Hezbollah. "The military is currently communicating with us to indicate that it is not interested in conducting an offensive in the north, engaging Hezbollah, vanquishing them, and establishing a security zone." On Wednesday, when visiting Kiryat Shmona, a city in northern Israel close to the border with Lebanon, Netanyahu warned that Israel was bracing for quite serious action up north. "Whoever believes they can harm us and for us to do nothing is gravely mistaken," the Prime Minister declared. "We will ensure the North's safety in some manner." On Tuesday, Hezbollah's second-in-command Naim Qassem told Al Jazeera that the organization has determined that the Israeli threats were unfounded. "We do not desire a full-scale conflict and have thus chosen not to expand the struggle." In spite of this, Qassem assured the Israelis that Hezbollah would cease its attacks on Israel once the conflict in Gaza ended. Is a full-scale conflict probable? According to experts, even if neither side intentionally starts a full-scale conflict, their escalatory moves could unintentionally set it off. According to men of the International Crisis Group, it is highly improbable that Israel and Hezbollah will knowingly decide to initiate hostilities. But something goes wrong, more frequently as hostilities escalate, he warned, because each side is pushing further into the other's area and using stronger weapons. With so many Israelis forced from their homes, Netanyahu is facing mounting pressure from both his coalition and the opposition to address the situation in the north.